Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show, Kim Kardashian has been in the spotlight recently, but this time in a very different setting. The billionaire reality TV star was singled out by the head of the UK's financial watchdog while warning of the risks of speculative cryptocurrency tokens. If you missed it, don't worry. I'll be discussing the fallout with Simon Dixon, the CEO and co-founder of Bank to the Future. He'll be joining me from the Isle of Man. And the flagship philanthropic initiative from Jack Ma, the Africa Business Heroes Award, has whittled down 12,000 entries to the top 20 outstanding entrepreneurs on the continent, selected to compete for $300,000. One of them, Ikenna Nwezi, the co-founder and CEO of Relief Marketplace Nigeria Limited, will be joining me from Lagos to provide insights on his company's monumental journey. Then later, I'll be bringing you the biggest company news stories of the week. But first, as always, let's start the show with business news from here in the UK, where on Tuesday, the country's Office for National Statistics revealed that 241,000 people were added to company payrolls in August, the biggest jump in employment since 2014. The number of paid employees is now back to pre-pandemic levels. The latest data comes just 2 weeks before the furlough scheme comes to an end on the 30th of September. In separate data, UK inflation rose to 3.2% in the 12 months to August, up from 2% in July and much higher than the 2.9% forecast by analysts. The figure is the highest rate since March 2012. Higher prices for transport, restaurants, hotels and food and drink made the largest contribution to the rise. The news sent the FTSE into negative territory. In other British business news, superstar rapper Nicki Minaj was given a surprise feature in a Downing Street news conference after the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty were forced to debunk her claims that COVID vaccines could cause impotence. Minaj's comments went viral in the UK, leading Chris Whitty to label people who peddle such untruths as shameful.
Many of those people, I regret to say, I think know that they are peddling untruths, but they still do it. In my view, they should be ashamed. And I'll leave it at that.
I'm just on that, Steve. I'm not familiar with the works of, or not as familiar with the works of Nicki Minaj as I probably should be. But I am familiar with Nikki Kanani, superstar GP of Bexley, who's appeared many times on before you, who will tell you that vaccines are wonderful and everybody should get them. So I prefer to listen to Nikki Kanani.
Speaking on his COVID-19 winter plans, the Prime Minister confirmed that Britain will begin a booster programme for older and more vulnerable people, as his government hopes to rely on vaccines rather than further lockdowns to navigate the season. 3 million children aged between 12 and 15 will be able to get their first shot of coronavirus vaccine from next week, a decision that has caused widespread condemnation.
We are confident in the vaccines that have made such a difference to our lives. And we're now intensifying that effort, offering jabs to 12 to 15-year-olds on the advice of the chief medical officers who've given that advice based on the health, well-being and educational prospects of the children themselves. And for over 50s and the under 50s who are at risk or more at risk, we're now motoring ahead with the booster programme, a third dose 6 months after your second dose. And so that's going to mean we're going to be building even higher walls of immunisation, of vaccine protection in this country.
New variants are one of the things we need to look seriously at. Now, of course, variants are happening the whole time, have always happened. The worry would be one that can escape from the vaccination. So the Delta variant is a very bad variant. I mean, let's be very clear, it's a very bad variant, and that's the reason we've had such trouble in the last year, as every country around the world. We have not faced a winter with the Delta variant, so it is possible that the combination of winter events plus the Delta variant, which is highly transmissible, could lead to a situation where, on the basis of the data, ministers decided that they wanted to trigger all or some of the Plan B, as the Prime Minister's laid out.
Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined in the studio by our business correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, it appears as if Boris Johnson's COVID-19 winter plan may have been upstaged.
Yeah, see, it's not every day that these briefings have Nicki Minaj involved in them, but she was, obviously, doesn't really need much of an introduction. She's got 22 million followers on Twitter, but what seems to have happened is that, yeah, she posted a message on Twitter talking about a cousin of hers that she said had had the vaccine and then had become impotent as a result of the vaccine. Now, impotency is not a side effect of the vaccine, according to scientists or the NHS website. And despite saying that, Minaj said she still thought she would get the jab. So it's just one of these kind of controversies that blows up when a celebrity says something. Chris Whitty, the chief medical officer, was asked about it at the press conference, and then ludicrously went on to sort of talk about Nicki Minaj. He was actually talking about really the more general point of rumours and mistruths flying around, and how, you know, stories can go from something to nothing to something. And he said that there are a number of myths flying around, he said, some of which are just clearly ridiculous and some of which are clearly designed to just scare, and he said this appears to be one of them. And then Nicki Minaj started to tweet back to him and back to Boris, and it all sort of has blown up. I guess it's one of the good things is it's kind of raised the point that there are these rumours that go around and people are influenced by them. People who maybe don't read news sources, but, you know, are influenced by celebrities online and just the potential hazards of that. Boris, she seemed to come out quite well with Nicki Minaj saying that she liked Boris, and so maybe his ratings have gone up slightly as a result of that. But the press conference yesterday was more about the winter and what the plan is come the winter as coronavirus cases are expected to rise. There are two plans really, Plan A, Plan B. Plan A is that COVID booster jabs will be offered to around 30 million people. So this is a third jab on top of the two that most people have already had. This includes the over 50s and younger adults with health conditions. So the people who are most at risk will get these booster jabs. And the Plan A also offers vaccines to young people between the ages of 12 and 15. A lot of people have strong views about that. A lot of people saying that why should we be vaccinating 12-year-olds when they're so low risk? But I guess that the risk is that they do spread the virus. And then Plan B would be a last resort, according to the government. So this will be compulsory face coverings, yet again, which we don't have now at the moment, in some settings. So that's probably going to be train stations, public transport, supermarkets and the like. Asking people to work from home again, that would be sort of, you know, Rishi Sunak's worst case scenario, because he's been telling people to get back into the office to try and help hospitality, and then introducing vaccine passports, which we're kind of having already, but this would probably be domestically or in short-haul trips to Europe and things like that. So I think that the main fear is that when the colder weather comes, we know the vaccine spreads more there, people spend more time inside, we need to have a plan if that does seriously ramp up and we have to do something about it. So, but the reminder, Boris saying that Plan B would be introduced very gradually, very slowly, rather than all at once, and that's a last resort. He's hoping that Plan A will do okay, and we won't see that huge scare and that huge push on the NHS that maybe we did last year.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. To our next topic, Africa's Business Heroes, the flagship philanthropic programme for the Jack Ma Foundation, has selected 20 entrepreneurs from across the continent to compete for a $300,000 cash prize. The initiative is committed to addressing barriers to economic development and entrepreneurship across the continent. Nigeria has the largest cohort of entrepreneurs, with 4 selected among the top 20, and one of them joins me now, Ikenna Nwezi, the co-founder and CEO of Relief Marketplace Nigeria Limited. Relief is an agriculture technology company that develops hardware and software solutions to drive industrialization of food processing in the continent. Ikenna Nwezi, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. I'll start with a congratulations from 12,000 entries. You've been whittled down into the final 20. That's absolutely amazing. Can you just tell us about your journey and how you've managed to navigate the pandemic and now, being singled out by Jack Ma?
Yeah, well, it's been a fantastic opportunity to be a part of ABH and to meet the other amazing entrepreneurs that are contributing as well. Definitely agree, COVID was a difficult period for us, but I think it strengthened our resolve as a team and was a great opportunity for us to really focus, if you will. So it's exciting to be at this point, and we're hoping for the best moving forward.
I think one of the headlines from the Africa Business Hero Awards is that four Nigerians have reached the top 20. So we can definitely fly the flag and celebrate. Some Nigerians, some entrepreneurs, not as successful as you, have complained about the environment and it being hostile for an entrepreneur for various reasons. What's your assessment of that? How have you been able to navigate some of the harshness of Lagos, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's first important to buttress those comments with just the facts about the market, right? So Nigeria is Africa's largest economy. We also have a massive population, 200 million people. That population will double to 400 million in the next 30 years. So it's an excellent market for investment and an increase in productivity and economic development. That being said, there are indicators that show that there's progress to be made. If you look at the ease of doing business studies that a lot of organizations have put in place, there's still room for us to move forward. And so I think Nigeria still has a ways to go, but it has the right fundamentals and it is an excellent location for investment. So I'm not surprised to see myself with other Nigerians at this stage.
Absolutely. We weren't surprised too. And obviously, we've got our fingers crossed for everybody, but particularly the Nigerian cohort. Ikenna, sustainable development, a massive topic of discussion at the moment. It's likely going to be, on top of the mind of all businessmen and women over the next few years. How is this a critical component of Relief's growth strategy in the coming years?
Absolutely. I mean, it's core to our mission. So at Relief, we work with smallholder farmers in the oil palm sector. Basically, what our company does is we set up processing factories close to farmers so that we can afford to pay them more for their crops rather than having to waste that money on logistics. And so by working with smallholder farmers, we are working to create a sustainable oil palm industry that benefits the people who are cultivating the crops. 80% of oil palm is produced by smallholders in Nigeria. And so if we can make smallholders more productive, we can meet the demand that we have for vegetable oil as our population and the country continues to grow.
Absolutely. Tell us, Ikenna, then, this is the best platform to do it. Why are you a worthy winner?
I will say our team and our company is a very, very worthy recipient of the Africa Business Heroes Award. Relief has a long history of focusing on bringing shared prosperity to Africans, focusing on building novel technology. So we have patent pending technology that we've developed. And so we are a center of innovation and we have a focus on driving prosperity for all Africans and making the price of food cheaper for everyone. And so I think that we would be an excellent recipient of the prize, and we're really excited to see how this next stage of the competition goes.
Absolutely. We're really excited, and we hope that no matter what happens, you'll come back and join us on Channels Business Global again. Ikenna Nwezi, co-founder and CEO of Relief Marketplace Nigeria Limited. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and good luck.
Thank you.
Coming up on Channels Business Global, I'll be discussing the latest cryptocurrency crackdown featuring Kim Kardashian with Simon Dixon, the CEO and co-founder of Bank to the Future. He'll be joining me from the Isle of Man. See you after the break. India's Jet Airways will resume domestic operations in the first quarter of 2022. The airline had been grounded for almost 2 years due to crippling losses. Thousands of people lost their jobs. The revival follows a bankruptcy court approval submitted by a London-based financial advisory firm and a Dubai-based businessman. The Indian carrier will now be based out of Delhi, with an inaugural flight scheduled to Mumbai, with plans to later return to foreign shores. China's most indebted property developer, Evergrande, is facing mounting investor backlash after the group disclosed that monthly sales have fallen by more than $5 billion. Bosses have blamed ongoing negative media reports that have dampened the confidence of potential property purchases. Some analysts suggest that the company's crippling debt, which currently stands at $305 billion, could pose widespread risks to the wider Chinese economy. Evergrande shares were down by more than 10% in Hong Kong following the release of the statement, and the firm's shares have fallen by around 80% in the last 6 months. To our next story now, the head of the UK's Financial Conduct Authority recently singled out an Instagram story posted by billionaire reality TV star Kim Kardashian to her 250 million followers that promoted crypto token Ethereum Max. Charles Randall said the post may have been the financial promotion with the single biggest audience reach in history and warned of the risks of speculative cryptocurrency tokens. Britain's financial watchdog has urged social media platforms to stop influencers from promoting unauthorised adverts for financial products. This is just the latest crackdown on the booming cryptocurrency market. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Simon Dixon, the CEO and co-founder of Bank to the Future. He joins me from the Isle of Man. Simon Dixon, it's a pleasure to have you back again on Channel's Business Global. It's also a pleasure talking about Kim Kardashian in this show because we never get the opportunity to do it. And I think she was probably even surprised that her name was mentioned by financial regulators in the UK. What were your thoughts on that and the Financial Conduct Authority singling out her post about Ethereum Max to warn about crypto speculation?
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting situation. So when having been in the industry for over a decade now, we know that many of these things are tightly regulated and there's lots of confusion. People don't know the difference between Bitcoin, which acts more like a currency, versus some kind of other alternative, which acts more like an investment product. So when celebrities enter this industry, they get very excited about the technological possibilities, but then they realize there's actually a vast array of regulations. And when you promote things which are less reputable and less known than Bitcoin, it's a minefield for celebrities. And we have seen lots of enforcement actions from regulators for promoting things, and people jump in and buy those things because a celebrity endorses them. But that would need to be followed by a bunch of disclaimers and disclosures, and celebrities don't often know this. So this is really a game of cat and mouse between the technological innovation and regulations. This has been going on for over a decade now, but Kim Kardashian has got herself caught up in the middle of one of those for promoting things and not realizing that there might be a bunch of disclosures and disclaimers, because people are going to jump in, put their cold hard money in these things, and they're not the same as Bitcoin.
Absolutely. I was waiting for you to say Kim Kardashian's name. Right, you said it. We'll draw a line on the Kardashian star. Bank to the Future have obviously been doing this for a very long time. Have you ever been tempted to have an influencer promote your products?
No, so as a regulated securities business at Bank to the Future, we have to adhere to very strict rules around who we can promote to, who's appropriate for such investment products, and all of the myriad of regulations and rules that we have to go through. So when we make out a tweet, there's been a bunch of lawyers, a bunch of disclosures, disclaimers, and all sorts of stuff that go behind that, so that investors can fully appreciate some of the risks. We've also put it through a vast array of our due diligence team to ensure that we're not accidentally promoting some kind of scam, because our industry is full of them, and it's very hard for the untrained mind that hasn't seen all the pitfalls for the last decade to distinguish between a legitimate project and a scam.
Absolutely, and I can testify this interview, this discussion is legal, Simon. I recently read on your website an open letter to some of your investors about the mounting regulation. I don't know if it was just my interpretation, but it seemed as if you were describing some of these regulators as the bogeyman. But surely this is good for consumers to make sure that, you know, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, right?
Well, you can split regulations up into a few things. So regulations really became a thing after the Great Depression of the 1930s, where financial products almost, kicked off one of the worst periods in history. And so ever since then, every single crisis has produced new regulations. And every time a consumer or an investor gets burnt, they complain to regulators, which leads to another myriad of regulations. And so decades and decades later, we have different types of regulations. And so I'm all for consumer protections, but there's a lot of regulations that don't protect consumers. For example, the main focus at the moment is on anti-money laundering. And so while I can appreciate the agenda and goals, with anti-money laundering regulations, it does the opposite of protect consumers, because it requires them to upload immense amounts of data, prove the source of funds, prove their source of wealth, and put that data at risk of being taken by hackers. So we have competing, and then you have things like privacy regulations, which are actually in complete counter to anti-money laundering regulations. And sometimes a regulated financial institution, we want to protect our investors, but we can't protect them because we have to follow anti-money laundering regulations. And then we have privacy laws and GDPR in Europe stating that you're not allowed to do that. So it's a very, very challenging thing, and competing regulations. So I'm all for protecting investors, but often regulations lead to the exact opposite of investor protections.
Well, hopefully that will tighten up as the industry matures. Another big talking point recently has been about El Salvador. On our show, we were discussing the fact that it crashed on the first day. Do you think the media were paying too much attention on the technical glitches, which would always have been inevitable?
Yeah, I do think that often Bitcoin is a volatile beast. It always has been a volatile beast. You know, if you're looking at the short-term price, then you're always there's an industry phrase of getting wrecked. And what tends to happen in our industry is that in the short term, our markets are very manipulated, and so there's an old phrase of, you know, buy the news, sell the fact. And this is probably one of those if you're a short-term trader. Long-term, it's extremely bullish. And these corrections that we have in between, just log out of the chart and you can see we've been in a 12-year bull market from the beginning of Bitcoin with a bunch of volatility in between. And so when these large events happen, like a country, which is a huge event for Bitcoin, making it legal tender, which means that it's legally required for shops and people in El Salvador to accept Bitcoin, then you get these big events that lead to hype cycles. And then short term, a bunch of market insiders try to manipulate the price, crash the price, and squeeze out the less trained and the weak hands that they're called. So this is something that always happens with short term behavior in all markets.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, very quickly, Simon, you recently reached a milestone. You've attained over $1 billion of seed funding. Congratulations. And what's next?
Yeah, so we've had over $1 billion invested in funding rounds listed on banktothefuture.com. And next, we're focusing on helping people build retirement plans so that they can benefit from the vast array of innovation that's happening. Holding Bitcoin, holding shares in crypto companies, and earning some interest on that Bitcoin, because there's been so much innovation now, and we're packaging that up into retirement plans for those that really want a plan B, a hedge against traditional financial products and many of the risks associated with the traditional financial system now that we're in such uncertain times.
We are, gosh, it's been a whirlwind of the past 18 months. But Simon Dixon, CEO, co-founder of banktothefuture.com, thanks so much for joining me on the show. Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today, but do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.